Hey there, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George Affleck.
And this is
UnSpun.
All right, week 4, here we are, 3 and 3. We're not doing 3 and 3 anymore.
No.
We're just going to cover all the topics.
We couldn't make it work.
We couldn't make it work. I'm not surprised. We're kind of chatty, George and I.
A little bit chatty.
But I will say that we thank you for tuning in. Lots of people reacting. Some not as pleased as others.
Yeah, Twitter's a great place to learn about how people hate you.
But speaking of which, you can be followed on Twitter.
Yeah, George_Affleck.
He's got the underscore. I'm just straight up at Jody Vance. But we also have at UnSpun Podcast. So you can follow us there. We like to tweet and retweet things from there. Or you can respond to us, and sometimes we'll read mean tweets or fun tweets. We don't have any this week because we're so busy. And the topics that we're doing this week, George, we're going to talk City Council, of course. That's where we're going to start. But we'll also talk about the mother of all by-elections. That's a Orca.ca trademark.
Mother of all by-elections.
Mother of all by-elections. And the legislature, the latest on that. And there is some new news depending on when you're downloading and listening to our podcast. And also we'll talk a little bit about the latest on the money laundering situation in British Columbia, and that is sort of creeping across the country. But we start with Vancouver City Hall and the increase that we mentioned last week. It's gone through.
Unbelievable to me. I mean, they took this, what's called a discretionary fund that was $6,000, which was new actually.
Per councillor.
Per councillor, to be spent on whatever they want, communications or research or whatever. And $6,000, that was a new addition in the last term that we brought in, and it was helpful. I used not all of the money, but I used a big chunk of it for research.
And was it $6,000 when you were a city councillor?
It became $6,000 in my last term, so it didn't exist before that.
What typically would you spend over
Mostly
the years?
Research. So I wrote 47 motions in my 7 years, so I think that might be a record. And I had a lot of assistance on that from a great team, and that's all transparent. You can go and see who those people were. They're all available on the website. So I used that money for getting to the deeper end of my motions to figure out, the history and all that kind of stuff.
Right, due diligence, get the research, make sure the facts are there so you don't waste other people's times, and that's paid for research, which as it should be. But now, how much is that discretionary fund?
As approved this week, they've a mayor's motion. He decided, for whatever reason, to simply bump it up to $30,000, a 500% increase, five-fold increase
per
councillor. So the Green Party, who was very supportive of this, together collectively now have $90,000 a year to spend on whatever they want. That's enough to hire a senior communications person to spin your message. And that's my biggest concern, is this is just feeding into, I've been asking for cuts to the communications department, which with under vision went from 6 staff to 40 plus. Now in the mayor's office went from a $300,000 budget to $1 million plus. I wanted to see cuts there. I didn't want to see additions. This is how Kennedy Stewart deals with people's anger towards communications. He adds more money.
So, okay, wait, let's unspin this, because that's what we do. Is this Kennedy Stewart's, I'm just going to ask it, I'm not even going to propose what it might be. Why would the new mayor of Vancouver, Kennedy Stewart, make a move like this so soon into his tenure? What is his goal here?
He has a big challenge because he has no power. He has to play a game of getting enough people on board. If he wants his ideas done, he needs the support of at least 5 councillors. And there is no group except for the NPA that has 5 councillors.
So this is endearing money. A little bit.
I'm not going to say that.
No, but I'm saying
it as a taxpayer. It certainly is endearing.
I'm concerned as a taxpayer.
Not to me, it's not endearing, but and not to any taxpayer.
But it's a. I understand how hard you work as a city councillor. I'm going to help make your job a little bit easier by giving you this discretionary budget that you have to be transparent with. So it's not like they can spend it willy-nilly on, I don't know.
Yeah, so it's past 65, by the way. So it's we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
So so it passed 6-5.
Who voted against it?
NPA voted against it. Yeah. So the 5 people he needed so he's got the other 5 people, I guess, endeared, like deers in headlights.
I'm calling it the endearment fund from now on. DEER.
Yeah. So it bugs me because it's so much money.
Yeah, and now we've got the punctuation on it because it's been passed. There we go. It's there now.
Done deal.
Done deal. Okay, also getting closer, ever closer to being a done deal is Skytrain to UBC.
Yeah.
And it depends on who you ask whether they're happy about this. But from a councillor point of view, from the vote in City Council, there were only 2 who voted against this, right? Who were the 2?
One NPA, Colleen Hardwick, and Jean Swanson from COPE. And their arguments for, one was very much in favor of light rail on the streets, laying rail across the city, as opposed to having something underground that can mass commute people.
Right.
Then Jean Swanson talked about housing or something. I didn't really understand her argument, to be honest. So the majority of council across parties supported it. I've always been supportive of underground, certainly from Broadway Station, which is a nightmare to replace the B line, the population increase at UBC. I actually took all the heat in the referendum that we had a few years ago, supporting that from a lot of my supporters, saying I shouldn't have supported that referendum. But I really believed in public transportation as a big solution to the environmental problems we have. Getting people out of their cars. It's nice, bikes are great, walking's great, but not everybody can do those.
No, but somebody can come in from Surrey now, and with a couple of in-ground tunnel swaps, be at UBC.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what the weather's like. It doesn't matter if there's an accident on one of the cross streets, which an above ground. I'm of the mindset, and certainly this will affect my neighborhood. I've grown up in that west side sort of lower income west side neighborhood, if that exists. But since my grandparents immigrated here, that's where our family has, put our flag in the ground. And I love the idea of this, with all the chaos that'll be part of the dig and the this and that and the higher density and the more people it brings to the neighborhood. Yes,
a lot of millennials don't have driver's licenses.
I want my son to get on transit and be able to get around easily. And right now, you can stand at a bus stop on West Broadway at peak time, certainly, and buses are going by you full. And
Pete Fry, who I wasn't sure whether he'd be supportive.
Yeah.
He's actually experienced catching that B line, and that was one of his arguments in favor of it. He is now experiencing it for the first time in his life, having to catch that B line at Main Street to get to City Hall, and sees 3 or 4 buses go past him because they're full.
And try and get to and from UBC. Like that City Hall is a long way from the university.
Oh yeah.
And when school is about to start or just finished for the day, it's
chaos.
It's like the Massey Tunnel at 3 p.m. when the counterflow lane has just gone in and you're trying to go against the grain. You know what I'm saying.
So this endorsement by the city is great.
Yes.
It's not a done deal in this case. Now it goes to the mayor's council. They have to say it's part of their plan, and then they have to find funding. But it's a first big step of what is a mixed council. So it's not rammed through like it would have been with Vision, and people would have perceived that. This was a cross-party decision, so it's a good thing that all 3-4 parties were supportive in different ways for it.
Okay, so we'll keep updating on that Skytrain to UBC and where it comes above ground and whether it tunnels all the way out. That's going to get that not in my backyard thing going on near the endowment lands, because where it's proposed to come above ground is a fairly high population area.
Lots of work to do on the consultation, for sure.
Yes. Well, we'll keep you posted on that. What about this tree chopping? What is going on? I saw John Cooper, Parks Board Commissioner, post about this. We saw down at Spanish Banks, a month and a half ago, and I was immediately like, okay, can we not look at whose view got improved by these trees being chopped down at Spanish Banks? But this time it's like at the golf course.
It's weird. I mean, I think it's indicative of what's happened in, Vancouver has very, very strict policies. You're not allowed to cut down any trees. Right. It's almost impossible to cut down a tree in Vancouver. And so I think that breeds a certain vigilantism that people go, I'm going to cut my own trees down that are in my way.
Though?
I know, but can't you just go 500 meters from the trees and go, oh, I think I know which house this was?
Our fabulous production researcher, Patrick, had a great idea. He's like, get a drone, fly it around, hover it with a camera, and see whose views were. But wasn't it like 40 or 50 trees that were affected in this particular?
Yes, very selective in some strange way, whether it's to keep us try to figure out who it was.
Because it would be too obvious if it was just
It might have been just a really flexible beaver that climbed a tree or a ladder. No.
A beaver on a stepladder, George.
I just like the tops, the good stuff. The top, said the beaver. We'll find out.
That's going to be a T-shirt when we start our T-shirt line here at UnSpun. Hilarious. But we've got a lot more to get to, and we got to talk in terms of provincial politics. And the mother of all by-elections happened on Wednesday night, depending on when you're listening to this. And nice job on television, by the way. You're doing a good job.
Thank you. Yeah, I get to go on CTV with former Mayor Diane Watts, which is kind of cool.
You guys are cool. I thought you were kind of cheating on this work wife with it, but I'm okay with it. Amanda's okay with me, so I'm okay with Diane.
I got 3 wives now. Oh my God.
I know. That says something.
Pleasantville, what was that place?
Hilarious. But let's talk about what happened. Okay, first and foremost, as somebody who's I love picking your political brain on such things, because I'm looking at this from the get-go with the tension of the possibility of a Liberal win in this traditionally NDP riding. The NDP needs this seat, and the Greens need the NDP to stay in power because of their propped up government.
Yep.
And if the Liberals were to take this one, that would put everything sort of in flux.
Yeah.
Why did the Greens run a candidate?
I know. I really think it was not smart, because they ended up going down significantly from 17 to 7%. So they lost 10%. A lot of those votes went to the Liberals. So to me, there's several stories here. One is for the Liberals, it was bad news that they lost, but I don't think it was that much of a surprise to anybody. Right. The good news was they learned a little bit about the NDP strategy, which is going to be, if in another election, which will be full negative, like fear campaign, which is what they ran in Nanaimo, to scare people. Don't vote Green. You got to get out and vote.
A vote for the Greens, and vote for the Liberals.
And if you're an NDP riding, if you don't come out, and the whole NDP thing is all going to fall apart. But for the Liberals, they actually gained 8 points in this election, and they stole most of that from the Greens. So it's something like, I remember my mom would drive. My mom used to vote mostly conservative, sometimes federal, but mostly conservative. But every so often she'd say, "I think I'm going to vote the Green Party." I'm like, what? There are so many people who, and you see it in Vancouver with the voting trends, that a lot of people vote MPA and they vote Green for the councillors, and they think there's this perception or this feeling or a feel-good thing. I don't know what it is. Clearly now people are going, the Greens have not provided us what they promised. They failed at everything.
Let's talk about what they failed at.
We're going to go back to a two-party system.
Two-party system, right? Yeah. Which makes some people very...
Well, that's their whole point. The pro-rep argument was that two parties are wrong, and
not enough choice. It's what we're seeing happen in the United States. And when somebody runs as an independent, that's a vote for the guy or person that you don't agree with at all.
Well, Schultz potentially running for president. You're going to
CEO of Starbucks.
Going to maybe screw up the whole, give Trump the victory, but we'll see.
So bringing that back, two-party system existing now here primarily for our BC politics. What does this look like for the Greens the day after that huge hit? Like that's
I wouldn't want to be Weaver in the back room right now going, sorry guys, I shouldn't have done that.
What shouldn't he have done?
He shouldn't have run a candidate. Right. He should have said, you know what, time's too short to come up with some argument. Family, the usual arguments. Whatever reason, they should not have run and continued to prop up the NDP, which is what they're doing. And then really focus on the next provincial, province-wide campaign.
Been any wins for the Greens at all? Like, let's go through. Okay, so proportional representation was what they absolutely had to get.
Yeah,
right? That was their loss. Site C.
Site C, it's a go.
LNG,
it's a go. Kinder Morgan likely going to be going ahead. So I can't think of anything. He likes to hold press conferences and say how the government is bad, but then he goes and supports them. So
interestingly
find it all
enough,
very curious.
And I've had opportunity to interview Andrew Weaver on a number of occasions, and early on, prior to actually the election in 2017, and he seems like a lovely human. He's a scholar, he's a professor, he is very passionate about what he believes in, he speaks from the heart, he's off the cuff, he's not sound bites and careful.
He speaks like half my speed.
Yes, he is a slow talker compared to you, George Affleck. But I loved it, and then right after the election was finally sorted out, when I was at CKNW with Linda Steele, we had both John Horgan and Andrew Weaver in studio right after it was like, okay, you're the government. And it was interesting to see the dynamic between the two of them. Remember, they were going to lacrosse games together. It was kind of a thing. And he seemed like level-headed. That's what I'm trying to get to. He seemed very level-headed. And over the last 3 weeks, and I follow him on Twitter, the tension and the tone and some of the things, because you and I talk a lot over each week to talk about what we're going to... And have you noticed... Maybe
that's a t-shirt. Weaver unhinged.
It seems like...
Is he off the rails?
Yeah, I don't want to be...
I think he's got to be frustrated, and he's got to be getting a lot of pressure from those hardcore Green people saying, what have you done? This was your opportunity. You're blowing it. And he is. I mean, not him particularly, but this deal that they have with the NDP has not worked. At some point, he has to say, well, what is the point? Is there any opportunity to grow my base if I'm just simply voting along
Or are you becoming
NDP
the
lines?
assimilated,
or are you
right?
just the NDP and just admit it?
Will we see maybe like the first to nows cross?
Well, I think what's interesting is, the BC Liberals get a lot of heat for not being environmental. And, the union support of NDP is significant, and I think they would take unions over the Green vote anytime.
Because nothing gets built with the Green vote is their mindset.
Yeah, it's exactly, and it's very expensive.
Yeah.
So, but Gordon Campbell, who was the mayor of Vancouver, who brought in many green policies, and then he brought in the carbon tax in BC, which is very controversial for who is perceived as a right-wing premier. He brought more to the environment into our province than any other leader in a generation. And he managed to get that vote, that Green vote, with his major majorities that he had when he was in power.
He was a radical centrist, George.
Yes, a radical centrist. And he worked it hard. Yeah. He consulted with that community. And so I think whoever, the leader of the Liberals, Wilkinson, needs to do that as well. He's got to get that Green vote. He's got to get the mushy middle.
And interestingly enough, Andrew Wilkinson feeling pretty good, it would appear, about the result, even though the Liberals did not win that seat. They fared well and took some of the Green vote, as you mentioned.
They're sad.
And Wilkinson posted or made a comment saying that the Liberals are now giving, there's a quote, giving Green voters a home they don't have anymore. Like that's a shot to the heart to Weaver, isn't it?
It's a strategy. It's a spin. He's trying to, the messaging now, I would see the Liberals saying, okay, our opportunity is beginning. I think you'll see a lot of policies from the BC Liberals will start being very, very focused on stuff that you would think traditionally are a Green Party or NDP. Again, the NDP really rely on the unions, and I don't think the unions are particularly happy with some of the policies that they've done that hurt workers.
Right. It's going to be interesting to see. There's also that there are going to be some new faces. I've got air quotes up.
I think a lot of people, and this will be the next topic I think on our list here, but you're going to see a lot of people leaving the Liberals for various reasons. Some controversial, some just like a time to get some fresh faces there. So there won't be an election, I don't think, right away. I think we'll get through budgets, and I think you'll see Weaver try to be more independent over the next year.
But he doesn't want to topple the government.
I think he will next year, though. I think
he's
the
got
next
more
budget,
power with the NDP.
Yeah, but by next year, 2020, he'll say, okay, now I'm going to topple you guys, and we got to
this is
it.
go time.
He's got to.
And do the NDP look at this by-election and that, like you said, the messaging is there, and they're still in that we're building, we're doing, we're all of the promises that we have given to the unions.
We've raised taxes.
But are they in a position now where maybe an earlier election wouldn't be the worst thing for them before
pull the switch? Yeah,
there's an opportunity.
I'm sure they're polling on that, and maybe not with one polling company that comes to mind. Their own polling company.
Is that the one we were talking about last week?
The 20% miss on that one. I think it was Main Street. So taking a lot of heat today as well. So I think we'll see. They'll base their decision on backroom information that we'll never see.
But we've learned on polls. I mean, geez, both north and south of the border now, polling is not what it used to be.
The BC Liberals in 2013, their polling internally was spot on.
Was it?
And they knew it, but they didn't
tell anybody. Even though this man would have to kick a dog in order to lose.
They knew they were going to win.
They knew, hey? Mm-hmm. See, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
George Affleck keeping us up to speed. Okay, let's talk still with Wilkinson. He put out, within 5 seconds, right? 5 seconds of the by-election being over, he's like, I'm back on the BC
I need to get to agenda.
Yeah.
I need to get my voice out now. Yeah.
So this, what you have in your hand, is the Ethics Accountability Plan.
Yeah, just hot off the presses, as it were.
Right. So,
hot.
Okay, let me just read the top of it because I think it's kind of interesting. It says, "Dear Mr. Speaker." So this is Andrew Wilkinson, the BC Liberal leader.
Best friend.
To his best friend, Darryl Plecas. In light of recent disclosures related to spending by legislature staff, there is an urgent need to reassure British Columbians that their central institution of government, I like the ambulance siren behind us.
Yeah, if people catch that, we're on a busy street. So.
No, but I love it because it's like, emergency!
We should just incorporate it.
We should. But it's true because
silent up at the corner, just like big alarm. Anyway, go ahead.
British Columbians need their central institution of governance to be financially responsible and transparent. So that's how we get into it. I agree with that. I don't care who wrote the letter. I want that, and I want it now. Yeah. And then the 20. There's
a whole bunch. That's some good ones. Some of them are surprising. One is no purchasing of alcohol. Like, what is going on?
Don't buy booze unless it's for
inventory.
Ceremonies.
Exactly. So inventory of all property in the legislature. There's no inventory. What the?
How is
there not an inventory? I mean, it's crazy. This is stuff. When I worked at Big Steel Men selling clothes, we did inventory every 6 months. It was the worst thing in my life.
I feel your pain.
Yeah. No retirement benefits. There's some good stuff in here.
Okay, do that one. The no
retirement benefits other than the prescribed public sector pension plan. So here's $250,000. Have a nice, and come back and get it again.
Oh, by the way, and still take your $350 a year. Yeah. Like, come on, that is a no-brainer.
And here's a hat from England.
Oh, that's in here too. Hold on, where is it? Staff uniforms clearly defined, modernized, and purchased only from BC suppliers.
So they're gonna wear a toque? Is that what modernized?
Yeah, like Roots.
Little Roots hat.
Yeah, maybe one of those floppy hats from the Olympics. What year was that? What year?
Yeah, there we go.
No.
Okay, so does my gown make my ass look big?
Yes, it does. In fact, hilarious. This guy's on fuego today, I tell you. Okay, so one of the things that Wilkinson is proposing here, that these 20 proposed reforms come into play immediately, because that's what many of us are sitting here thinking, like,
this is what the people want for sure. I mean, this is intuitive, but also obvious.
First and foremost, though, and I'm glad this is number 1 on the 20 list, because I want this on the fridge so that all the MLAs and those in charge can see it.
Cover up the kids' drawings.
Right? But, I mean, MLAs have to play to most of these already. It's the executive committee and whatnot.
The legislature itself, yeah.
All travel expense claims from legislative officers, speaker, clerk, sergeant-at-arms, be posted on a prominent web page as soon as they are reimbursed, as is the case with MLAs. To me, it is shocking that that is not already a thing.
Transparency. I don't know why. I've always been speaking about City Hall in Vancouver so opaque, and Vision made it more opaque. It's interesting that a lot of the people that were behind Vision Vancouver are now in Victoria, and they're facing this kind of dilemma because they were so opaque in Vancouver. Now they're being forced, thank goodness, to be 100% transparent, which is the best way. As a politician, you need to understand that you are a public servant, and everything you do, is whether it's private, everything is assumed to be for the public.
But so much of what we're seeing right now with the alleged wrongdoings at the legislature, we have to say it's alleged. By the way, Gary Lenz and Craig James will be rebutting.
Yes.
February 7th by 4 p.m. is what the deadline has been set. We were expecting it in the next day or two here, but it's been extended.
I smell 500 lawsuits.
500 lawsuits.
And getting away with, whatever, potentially.
With it being established practice, right?
I think there's precedent for this, that, I think that it'll be a long process, but I think that people won't be happy with the end result, I don't think.
The Orca.ca, on Wednesdays, I do a column called The Middle, and this week is about, like, as a non-political professional, I'm looking at this as a taxpayer, and I'm like, this room that has been in candlelight for decades just had the fluorescent lights turned on. The dust is there. The cracks are there. Let's clean this up. Let's just clean this up.
The first time I've heard that, though, and I feel like, why does this keep happening?
But I think the onus is
people are so cynical about politicians, and they should be, because this kind of stuff keeps happening. It drives me crazy.
And the onus is on us as the taxpayer. That's when your vote has to count, right? I think that's why a lot of people were disillusioned with City Hall. Why Gregor Robertson decided not to run again is because many of the people who maybe thought, okay, you know what, I like this guy, I like kind of what he's doing, and then he disappears off the planet, and the taxpayers, the voters...
The happy planet?
Well, the voters are the ones that said, you know what, enough of this.
Yeah, well,
and he knew that was coming, but that's going to hit at the ledge, and people are more engaged politically today than they have been in a very long time, because we're looking at what happens south of the border. We do not want reality TV stars as our leaders here. And if we continue down I'm going to put blinders on because all politicians are corrupt, yes.
Yeah.
They're going to be, and they're going to be crazy, and they're going to cut taxes for the wealthy, and they're going to, take away what's needed for those who actually need support. So we need to be loud here on UnSpun.
And transparent is what
transparent. And along those lines,
yes.
We get to something that is...
Our last quick hit.
It's driving me crazy. I love Sam Cooper. Do you read Sam Cooper?
I've known Sam because he was a City Hall reporter when I first got elected, and did some great stories about City Hall at that time, and I think laid the groundwork for the demise of Vision, because a lot of the stuff he was doing was about transparency, about the communications department being giant.
He was at the Sun and Province, right?
That's right. He was at the Sun and Province. He wrote a lot of stories about opaque government in Vancouver and about spin at City Hall and all that stuff, and he really put a lot of pressure on Vision. Didn't help, but he certainly did. And then he went off and did all this this casino stuff.
The casino stuff, he actually was on top of and broke the casino stuff that brought it to David Eby's attention. Like, that David Eby could no longer ignore it because Sam Cooper had done the Freedom of Information requests that were, he's like, I do 400 of these, like, easily a month. Like, he just keeps at it, and finally gets it.
And then you have to read them.
And some of them are redacted, and then you have to request again, and then you got to try and get the redactions removed so you can understand what it says. But he had one we tape this program on a Thursday, and he had yet another one this morning that showed just a next layer level of, specifically at the River Rock Casino in Richmond, which keeps coming into play, right? Some alleged stuff there. But we've actually got video of people from 2012 basically saying, it's fine, we've checked it out, it's all good, it's not happening. It's happening, and it continued to happen, and it's on video surveillance.
But the pressure's on for this commission then. That's right.
I mean, when is somebody to get charged?
Eby is not willing to, and it's interesting. I mean, I think that, why? I mean, I guess the argument I've heard is that, well, going back and figuring all this out is like, let's move it forward. The cost of it, the whole commission.
I don't want to move it forward. I want to arrest
public relations
people.
And the move, certainly the pressure, the unions are now pressuring the government to push forward with this. So, but they're pushing back. They don't seem to be willing, and I'm interested to see.
I want to know why. Thank you for keeping me calm. I was getting hysterical there. No, I really do.
It's
just
I'm the one that's always.
Right. So I'm just balancing things out here. We're starting to find our feet. We love hearing from you at George_Affleck on Twitter, at Jody Vance on Twitter, at UnSpun Podcast, and also, I mean, you can write to our bosses at the Orca.ca. I mean, they really have so much control over us in the end.
That's right.
No, they don't. No, they really don't. No.
Hi, McLean. How you doing?
Hi. All of our friends. Oh, and it should be noted that Jordan Bateman, our good friend at the Orca as well, had gone with his prediction that he felt that the Liberals were going to win in Nanaimo. So there's your shot, Jordan.
Yeah,
This is just
call.
testing to see if Jordan Bateman watches all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he does. Because we're wrapping up here. So you download, you subscribe, wherever you get your podcast. Tell your friends about it. I've got a lot of people saying, I love George Affleck. I did an event last night where a couple people came up to me and they were all like, I wish George had run for mayor. I said that to you too.
Yes, but then I would have been in meetings for the last 2 days till midnight.
Do you have aspirations of? No, we'll keep.
No comment.
We'll keep that a secret. Thanks for watching UnSpun, and we'll.
Thanks, everybody.
See you next time.
See you next time.